Okay, do people have any questions for any members of the panel? And if you would just say who you are and who you're representing.
Hi, Justin Smith, CCT College Dublin. This relates actually to the previous question in a way, but I'm interested to hear, I'd be interested to hear from any of the panelists about how much a challenge there is in terms of what is happening with the view of education itself nowadays, because it seems to me that we're in something of a state of flux, culturally speaking, in terms of the value of an education, and that there's a competing idea between education for its own sake and education for purely practical outcomes. And in the midst of that, as librarians, you're faced with another set of challenges. And it's been touched on in terms of, the critical thinking skills and so on. How much is it within our remit to address that as librarians, or can we?
Go on, somebody go first.
I'll try. How much? Yeah, I mean, it's a good question. How much is in our remit? And earlier on, when I started at NUI Galway, it was about 2 years ago. I was told to, hey, take this approach. Throw whatever against the wall and see what sticks. And I took that. I did that for a while. But now, I have a clear recollection. A clear idea that, okay, so what, what is the actual scope of what it is that we're doing? What do we include in that scope, and what do we exclude from that scope? So it's an incredibly difficult question that we're in the process of negotiating, I suppose. But I suppose what I've been trying to do is to think about in a kind of a practical space like critical thinking. What are the kinds of things that are the things that librarians tend to do that fit within that kind of an idea, and how can those be brought together in a way? Because I think that something like that is actually very broad. It could mean all kinds of different things, and I actually think it refers to a lot of things that we do traditionally and have done for a long time, or could at any rate. So if there's an opportunity to bring together an idea that's something new, that's something that is comfortable in terms of professional identity, go for it as much as possible. Probably doesn't answer the question at all. Anyways, anyone else?
Yeah, I think that's a great question as well. In Canada, we're seeing an increased pressure from deans across the board to demonstrate career readiness, or how we're contributing to career readiness with our programming. I think, as was mentioned, I think with information literacy skills anyway, that is an easy fit and an easy pitch to sell. The challenge in some cases, for me anyway, because I've taken that and really actioned it in my work by asking faculty for their syllabi, looking at exactly how they're going to be grading students, and then teaching the skills that the students are going to achieve grades on. The challenge for me anyway has been, so anyway, I see that as within my purview, absolutely, but the challenge for me has been to have that conversation less at a one-to-one individual faculty level conversation, and more with department heads and looking across programs, because I think it's still the assumption, as you mentioned, sometimes we're looking backward, like secondary school students should have learned this. We don't need to cover that, when, as it turns out, they are really needing some of the basics covered. So similarly, I think faculty, unless you're sitting in the department head position, they're assuming, oh, it's being taught in the junior level classes or the first level classes. I don't need to teach that in third or fourth year, or even master's or graduate level. And we're seeing, of course, yeah, they still do need that instruction. So it's having conversations with those department heads to say, where in the program are these being taught? Oh, nowhere? Okay, then we need to scaffold that all the way through the curriculum, or the students can do well. Some of them will always do well, and there's a number of others who might be at risk or might even drop out as a result of not feeling prepared to do that work.
Okay.
One
Jane.
thing
Oh yeah.
Sorry, very
yeah.
quickly.
Yeah.
Just adding to that, I would say as well that I think libraries are in a unique role. We have a unique space that we can occupy in this, in the sense I sit on the faculty teaching and learning committees across the 3 faculties, and and this isn't to be kind of in any way denigrating academics that I work with there, but a lot of the time they maybe fail to see what it is like for students, and that's partially because students may not be able to be as open with them as they are when they come to see us. So obviously we meet them regularly, they're into us for consultations, and it's still small enough in Maynooth that you can often get to know students a little bit personally. And there is a sense that they can be a bit more open or free with us. And we have students then completely stressed, crying, talking a bit about the personal circumstances they're in a way that they can't do with the lecturers. And I think that's important, that we can bring the realities for students when we can, in the ways that we can influence, because I think it's not being done. And sometimes, I was at an event recently and academics were just like, they just have to do this. I mean, that's what we expect of third level students, and they're right. But if the reality for students, I mean, we hear them talking about how do they navigate their way around all the group projects they have to do. All of the students I meet these days, all of them have jobs. When I was in college 20 plus years ago, some people had jobs and some people didn't, but they were part-time, the weekend only. These are nearly full-time jobs that students have, in addition to trying to do an onerous course of study. And I just think we have a role we can play in that.
Okay, Jane? Yeah.
This is more of a, Jane Burns, this is more of a comment perhaps for all of us to think about. If we have students in third level who are not going to workshops, are not participating in information literacy, they're still graduating, they're still passing the courses, are we just wasting our time? Mm-hmm. So should we say, you know what, let's do things that are more, rechannel our energy into other things, that are more library focused or more research focused, and if they can do it without us, well then maybe what we're doing is redundant. So it's just a question to maybe for all of us to think about.
Yeah. Any comments on that? I'm just thinking back to what John talked about.
One comment. I think we could collaborate more directly with students. Certainly, some of the postgraduate research students in Trinity are working on some of our children's collections, and the data that they're gathering is being transferred by the cataloguer into the catalogue, and so that's a direct collaboration with faculty, and I think we could do more of that.
Yeah. And I sometimes wonder, we do stuff like John talked about, changing all the abbreviations into, was it full words? And you just sort of think, actually, could we be putting our energies into something else? Would it be more worthwhile? People can still find stuff, Time for one further question. Yeah.
Hi, Maura Caffrey, Teagasc. This is more of a comment on this discussion. And I think it is part of a broader discussion about the role of third level and the approach and the care for the students, because I'm coming at it, Teagasc is a research body in food and agriculture, for those who don't know, and I'm supporting the researchers, but we have a PhD program where PhD students are sponsored to work in our labs, and I'm finding that I would have assumed they had a certain level of search skills. They're all mainly scientists, and they don't. And like that, they've managed to get through college without it. And is that not, I'm not saying it's a denigration of the librarians in college, I'd see it more as a denigration of the whole system. That, but I definitely think the librarians need to be part of the discussion and maybe need to be challenging the academics more and be right in there advocating, as you say, for the students and advocating for the system to change.
Yeah.
Just to add on to what you've said, I think I kind of agree with that. But all that is happening in higher education, I think it's an opportunity for us as librarians to make our relevance appreciated by our stakeholders. I think the problem that we often have is for us going to the students or our service users with an expectation that they should know ABCD, but when they come to us, they have their own needs and expectations. So I think we need to balance out the expectations with our own, and we can only do this by engaging them and talking to them and try to see what is it that they really want and how are they getting what they want. so that when we go to them, we kind of navigate our way around that rather than going with our own mindset that this is how they need to approach using our services.